Well, we're getting a lot of moisture surging into the area, coming in from East Texas and Louisiana. Probably our last gasp of really deep moisture. We do have a very brief window of severe weather here, like late October to November, so we're not totally out of the woods for severe weather. In fact, you can kind of see the dew points here. 70s dew points all the way from around Tyler to just past Austin. And let's see, those back off a little bit down into the Corpus Christi area. So a little bit of 70s coming inland, and even maybe some mid-70s just offshore. There's a 75 right there. So that's replacing a lot of the 50s and 40s we had across Texas yesterday. And with the sky condition plots, you can see those broken overcast conditions right there working their way inland. So let's take a look at the big picture across the U.S. We've got two large lows, one in the Lake Superior region, the other in western Kansas, and both of those are going to be frontal. And you can see a bit of maybe a cold front extending from around maybe Wisconsin down to Kansas, and maybe another one further back westward maybe. This looks like a dry line right here. And since we don't really know for sure, we can take a look at the surface analysis, and that does kind of bear out that we do have that dry line somewhere in West Texas, maybe a little bit further east, because we have 86 there at Tucumcari, very warm. 82 at, let's see, what would that be? Truth or Consequences, somewhere in there. That's very warm for this time of year, and even a few 70s in the Four Corners area. So this is all a big tropical air mass. And to really find the cooler polar air, we have to go a little bit further north, maybe even up past the Great Basin area. So maybe a front kind of like this, perhaps. So this kind of gives us a good starting point for the current weather analysis, and as we go further north, we can find much cooler conditions. So there's Wyoming with a bunch of freezing conditions and even a little bit of snow, and lots of 20s there in Montana. So very cool weather coming in from the western Canadian area into the northern Rockies. Now, speaking about severe weather or winter weather, we haven't looked at Siberia in a while. Maybe we should take a look at that. Here's Korea right here down on the bottom. And this is going to be, let's see, 1Z, that's going to be about 10 a.m. Korean time. So yeah, this whole area is about 10 in the morning. Here it's about 11 in the morning. So that gives you a rough idea of what kind of temperatures to expect. And they do look to be pretty mild in southern China, a lot what we have on the Gulf Coast right now. You can see a few dew points there in the mid-50s and lots of fog. And as you get into the higher plateau region around Mongolia, we start picking up 20s and 30s in that drier air. And as you go north into Siberia, now we start getting into the really cold air here. Lots of teens and 20s. Temperatures falling substantially, and by about a month and a half, 2 months from now, high temperatures are going to be in the minus 30 range in that area, because this is a big source of polar air, this basin region here. I forgot the name of, there's a big river that comes through here. It goes through Yakutsk, but that's kind of a big drainage area, and they get a lot of cold air production in there and also in the mountainous regions further east. cold pole. We went over this about a month ago. The cold pole is Oymyakon, which is located about somewhere right in there. And they've seen it below minus 80 in the wintertime. So things are definitely changing quickly in that part of the world. And just for the heck of it, we can draw on maybe a little bit of a front, maybe out here. See if we can find that. We see lots of 50s just to the south of this low pressure area. So, I don't know, maybe if we draw this right with red, yeah, let's try that. Possibly a front like that, warm front like that. It could also be up here. It would fall in that pressure trough, but a lot of this is also going to depend on elevations because there's a lot of higher terrain in here that might be throwing off the readings a bit. Further back, let's see here. There's those 50s and 40s, and then we get into 20s as you go further west. So out in this area, possibly a cold front like that. So those are just some things to look at on the Asian analysis there. So let's head back to the U.S. here. And I'll show you one interesting graphic here. This is the snowfall depiction, so we can kind of see how this comes along. Generally, on top of your fresh snowpack, that's where you're going to be developing polar air. So kind of in this area here. So they've definitely got the snowpack down in eastern Siberia and even all the way to northern Canada. And we can check out that side of the pole. This is the Canadian analysis, 11th at 06Z of snow cover. So that's going to be midnight about 18 hours ago. It's like quite a bit of snow cover in here through central Saskatchewan into Manitoba. And it's a little more widespread than I expected. So we should see the startup of some production of polar air in this region over the next week or two. And that'll help to generate a few polar air masses that should start their way down southward over the next week or two. So this kind of reinforces the idea we're going to start seeing a transition to a cooler pattern very shortly. So I guess we can jump right into the GFS forecast. Let's check it out here. Run this back to 0Z. Okay, that's our current analysis. So the two big high-pressure areas we're looking at is one over Montana, the other over the eastern U.S. right there. So those are going to be your air mass source regions. So it looks like kind of a stagnated polar high across the northeast U.S., cool, mild conditions, and another one over Montana, more of a fresh polar outbreak. And in between those, there's roughly where a front is, maybe something like that or warm front like that. Anyway, there's the leading edge of that. So moving forward, high pressure sinks rapidly southward, kicks that front into Texas by tomorrow night. So we should see maybe a slight chance of some showers or storms. Depends on how deep the moisture is. And but the axis of that's going to be right through here in East Texas. And you can see it's starting to get stormy out here in the northwest. Got some 990 millibar pressures right offshore there. So there comes one low coming inland from Washington. Start getting some return flow ahead of that. And looks like another 960 millibar low. That's pretty deep there. See what that does. Okay. That looks like it moves inland, dissipates, and probably is going to reform there on the other side. And here we go. We've got a new low forming. This is going to be about Tuesday next week. So this is the 150 millibar 150 hour forecast. So cyclogenesis here. We should see a bit of a warm up here in Texas early next week. And then let's see. Towards the end of next week, looks like a cool outbreak into the eastern U.S. There's the leading edge of that. So most of the thrust of that goes eastward, not so much into Texas. Then we go out to next Thursday. Now we're starting to develop some anticyclogenesis in the central U.S. So this is about the extent of the polar air mass, something like that. So 1020 millibar high. Let's see what happens to that. Okay, that moves southeastward. Looks like we get another low moving in quickly from the west. It looks like a very progressive pattern here. More of a Pacific low coming in, Pacific high coming in from the west. This is going to be late next week, Saturday, 22nd. And then more cyclogenesis out west. So it's going to be a succession of highs and lows and highs and lows. This is, yeah, like I said, it's a progressive pattern. There's a name for this. It's called I guess you can call it a migratory storm track. And looks like some new action out in the Gulf of Mexico. We have to keep an eye on that. That's after 300 millibars. This is October 27th. So as we've seen, a lot of this can change. So anyway, that's going to be coming up from the south, from the Caribbean, and we're not going to see anything out there at this hour, this early. Okay. So I think that's about all I want to cover. It's just kind of a slow pattern here. Looks like things should get a little bit more interesting tomorrow as that front gets into Texas. We might even have a few showers to look at as that comes southward. And if so, we'll check out the radar and see what's going on. So I think that's about all I got for tonight. I appreciate you watching, and just want to say hello to everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow night at the same time. Thanks.